If you examine the current situation between Washington and Ottawa, it goes beyond normal diplomatic disagreement. The tension increasingly resembles a serious economic rift, and the financial impact is steadily rising. For decades, the United States and Canada maintained one of the closest partnerships in the world, connected by the longest undefended border, deeply integrated supply chains, and shared energy infrastructure. When Donald Trump returned to the White House, he revived a familiar strategy: tariffs. His administration imposed significant duties on Canadian goods, including a 10% tariff targeting crude oil and electricity exports. The assumption appeared straightforward. Canada exports more than 3 million barrels of oil per day to the U.S., along with large volumes of hydroelectric power to states like New York, Michigan, and Vermont. The expectation was that Canada would absorb the pressure and negotiate quickly, but Canada responded differently. Prime Minister Mark Carney, a former central banker known for his structured economic approach, chose not to escalate publicly. Instead of responding rhetorically, his government began quietly diversifying trade relationships. Reports suggest Canada has initiated what analysts describe as a large-scale realignment of trade flows, estimated at roughly $116 billion in redirected energy exports, foreign investment shifts, and long-term infrastructure commitments. Rather than relying predominantly on the U.S. market, Canada has strengthened energy partnerships with Asia and Europe. The expansion of the Trans Mountain Pipeline now enables Canadian crude to reach Pacific ports more efficiently, allowing exports to India and other Asian markets. Liquefied natural gas contracts with Japan and European partners have also increased. At the same time, provinces have signaled they may prioritize domestic industrial development, including AI data centers and critical mineral processing facilities, using their own hydroelectric capacity. This shift matters because the United States depends heavily on Canadian energy. Over 60% of U.S. crude oil imports come from Canada. Many refineries, particularly in the Midwest and Gulf Coast, are configured specifically to process heavy Canadian crude. Any disruption or price increase directly affects fuel costs. Electricity interdependence is also significant. States in the Northeast rely on hydroelectric imports from Quebec and other provinces. When wholesale electricity markets tighten, costs can rise quickly, especially during winter demand peaks. At the same time, Canada has expanded international partnerships. Engagements in global forums and bilateral talks with countries such as India and Japan signal a broader diversification strategy. Critical minerals, essential for electric vehicles, semiconductors, and defense technologies, are becoming central to Canada's long-term leverage. Rather than restricting exports outright, regulatory reviews and environmental oversight measures have increased, slowing certain cross-border flows. This evolving dynamic reflects a broader shift in global trade psychology. Tariffs can influence negotiations, but they also introduce uncertainty into highly integrated supply chains. Modern manufacturing, particularly in the automotive sector, and what depends on cross-border movement of parts multiple times before final assembly. When tariffs apply at each crossing, costs compound rapidly. For example, U.S. auto manufacturing depends on Canadian aluminum, steel, and mineral inputs. Energy pricing also plays a role in production costs. If both raw materials and electricity become more expensive, manufacturers face margin pressure and potential competitiveness challenges. Beyond energy and manufacturing, Arctic policy is another strategic layer. As climate change opens northern shipping routes, sovereignty claims over passages like the Northwest Passage have gained importance. Canada has worked with European and Asian partners to strengthen recognition of its jurisdiction in Arctic waters, reinforcing long-term strategic positioning. All of this reflects a deeper transformation in global trade patterns. For decades, the international economic order assumed consistent U.S. leadership and open market access. But when close allies experience trade friction, other nations take note. Diversification becomes attractive. There are several possible paths forward. Scenario 1. A prolonged adjustment period. Tariffs remain, Canada continues diversifying, and consumers in affected sectors gradually absorb higher costs. Scenario 2. Escalation. Additional trade restrictions could intensify supply chain stress, impacting regional economic stability.